focus tonight focuses on the challenges facing the military veterans in the country. If you will remember, in October last year, we saw that meeting that turned into what others described as an unfortunate hostage drama. And the reason why it turned into that is because military veterans feel that government is turning a blind eye to the plight of military veterans and the challenges that they are facing. Well, to be a part of the conversation tonight, you can send us your views on 0721105584. That's the WhatsApp number. Otherwise, you can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. We're joined now by Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Thabang Makwetla. Deputy Minister, good evening, and thank you very much for your time. Good evening, Etao, and good evening to your viewers. It would be an understatement, really, to say there is tension between military veterans and the Department of Military Vets and Defense in the country. But you called an imbizo. Part of the reasons that you highlighted for this imbizo was that you were seeking to get guidance from the military veterans. You wanted their active support. You wanted them to be a little bit patient while the government is working out some of these issues. But also you were hoping that in those meetings there are some feasible resolutions that you could come into as far as the grievances are concerned. Did everybody who came around the table on the day agree on what were the priorities that would need to be addressed immediately?
Well, thank you very much. Let me just provide additional information on the event that you are referring to. Last week we were in Polokwane in the Limpopo to commence a nationwide consultation by the Department of Military Veterans with the provinces, departments that are involved in their line functions in delivering benefits that military veterans must be provided with by the Department of Military Veterans, for an example, education, health, housing.
Right.
And this comes about as a result of the decision by the President to establish a presidential task team, which is led by the Deputy President, as you are aware, which task team appreciated right from the beginning that to unblock service delivery to military veterans, we can only do it expeditiously with the assistance of provinces, because the capacity of the Department of Military Veterans is very limited. And it is part of the reasons why there's this anxiety and this anger, as you earlier on said, among these military veterans. So it is our desire to make sure that we have a collaboration between the Department of Military Veterans and the provincial departments that in their line function duties are involved in delivering services that military veterans must get.
Right.
It is for that reason that we're in Limpopo. We met there with the MEC for Health, for instance, the MEC for COCTA, because in Limpopo the MEC for COCTA is also responsible for housing, to hear from that political leadership of the province what would their suggestions be from where they sit on how best we can collaborate. As I'm saying, we'll be going to the other remaining 8 provinces, and that information will be fed into the deliberations of the presidential task team as led by the Deputy President.
And are the military vets patient with this process? Have they accepted? Because these processes are processes of government. These are processes that may take long. I mean, one tour was in Limpopo, logistics of taking it to all the other provinces and how long that process is going to take. Are they in on it, or will they lose patience halfway through the process?
Good question, and that's what we really have from where we sit. We've got to manage that, because for us to succeed requires a lot of discipline, both within the department's own workforce, but also within the community of military veterans themselves. Because if we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we are working at cross purposes, it's not going to assist us. It's just going to make things to take longer to get us where we want to get to. So in relation to the issue about the patients, what I can say is this, Thabo, that and to our military veterans, we are people who are coming from a war where we come back having lost among our best friends. Some of us have actually also, with their own bodies, we have stopped bullets. So violence is the last thing that we should have appetite for. When we said that struggle was for peace in our country, it should really find expression in our body language as a community of military veterans, but also just even in our language and utterances. We must be very educative that there is value in making sure that there's always peace in our country.
You, as you put it, you're a military vet yourself, the minister, a military veteran herself. Why is it so difficult to know who is a military vet and who is not? The president saying in one of the address, actually, that part of the problem is that there needs to be an audit of who really is a military vet, because not everyone who claims to be one is actually one.
We should actually have started right there. That question is very fundamental, because even in the public out there, the understanding of who is a military veteran may actually not be sufficient. A military veteran, according to the definition we have in the law, is any South African who at some point in their lives belonged to a military organization. Now, that you'd see immediately that it qualifies very many people with very many backgrounds, different profiles. It involves those who were in the liberation armies that fought for change in the country, but those who were also in the statutory forces, first starting with SADF members, former Defense Force members of the apartheid days, the TBVC state armies former members. It also includes those who may still be around who fought in the Second World War. Anyone who's a South African who at some point was in his life a member of military organization is a military veteran, including those who today are serving in the South African National Defense Force. Lastly, to add to these categories, we also have, not by design of the department, but as a result of a court judgment handed down against the Department of Military Veterans, the recognition of members of the MSDS program, which is the military skills program, where you have young people, recruited cadets, given 2 years training and released out of the service. We also have those now becoming part of that community of military veterans as a result of a court judgment which the department did not defend against. So you have people with different backgrounds and different needs. However, what we must always remember is that when this department was established of military veterans, the community that government had in mind as in dire straits and needed support, welfare-wise, it was those who were in the liberation armies, former members of the non-statutory forces, not these other categories with respect to the welfare problem that government had acknowledged.
Because those who are in the statutory apparatus have, for example, got their pension fund, healthcare, and education support already sorted?
That's right. That is the assumption, that because they were gainfully employed, and when they exited the organizations they were working for, it means that their employment policies would have taken care of their lives after service. So the people who really were a concern why the Department of Military Veterans was established was those who were our yesterday's freedom fighters.
Why is there then this issue of registering and the recognition of this grouping called the Liberation Struggle War Vets? why is government failing to acknowledge them and recognize them and the issues that they're raising?
Let me take just one step back. The verification process became necessary right at the point when the Department of Military Veterans was established. Reason being that the Department of Defense, when we approached the Department of Defense to say who are South Africans that we should deal with that qualify to be military veterans. So we had to go to the certified personnel registers of all the military organizations that integrated in 1994. So we were expressly told by the Department of Defense to say everyone who was on the CPR list is now on the database, and here is that information. However, there are plus minus 500 military veterans we believe are bona fide cases who are not on the CPR list of the Liberation Armies. Plus minus 500, that was their estimate. But of course today we are sitting with close to 5,000, not close to 6,000, 5,924 applicants who are saying they are military veterans. So you can figure out yourself the problem we have, that the benefits that the Department of Military Veterans is rolling out to these military veterans who are on the database are being stampeded by people who some may not be genuine. Some of them are genuine, and hence that's why we have the verification panel to sort out that category of people.
Let's take a break. We'll continue next and hear more about the reviewing of the legislation and how that is going to assist in this process. Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans Thabang Makwetla stays with us. You can weigh in tonight on the conversation on 072-110-5584. Otherwise, tweet us at Newzroom 405. We're back in a moment. Yeah, back with us tonight on In Focus. The conversation continues with the Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Thabang Makwetla. They are, of course, on a nationwide campaign to visit various provinces, particularly to address the issues of military veterans, because that's where they believe this matter could be expedited and service delivery could be given to the military veterans. Now, before the break, we're talking just firstly on the question of definition, right? In October, following that incident at St. George's, the presidential task team came out and said, well, this is where we are. This is what we're doing so far. One, there is a draft bill to amend the Military Veterans Act to deal with some of these discrepancies, particularly around definition. So is there a mutually agreed upon area here around what the definition is going to be, so that we don't find ourselves having 200,000 people who are claiming they're military veterans?
The process of amending the bill, the act, is afoot. What is important, Thabo, for us to note is that the Department of Military Veterans was established on the basis of an interim policy in government for or around military veterans.
Okay.
It was envisaged that with the time, what is going to happen is that we'll have a policy document, a white paper on military veterans, which would allow the public to debate what they believe their country must afford military veterans. So that has not happened. And this is the reason why there is a need to amend the Act on the basis of now a full-blown discussion of what we believe as a country should be done to military veterans, and also to say who should those military veterans be. There is a problem in that, as you can see, the present definition pulls into the head everyone. But the Act then goes further to provide an exclusionary clause in relation to those who qualify for benefits. You are not qualifying for benefits of military veterans simply because you are a military veteran. There is a clause that says every benefit will be dispensed on a means test basis.
Yes.
So that clause, that exclusionary clause, it was hoped that it will be able to be a buffer against the majority of people who these benefits are not meant for.
Okay.
However, the way things have unfolded, exclusion of those who are not necessarily,
the means test criteria is now becoming a discrepancy in and of itself, because I mean, you hear things being said anecdotally. I don't have particular proof of this, but others are saying you find military veterans who claimed their pension fund, who were part of SADF, as you put it. They've claimed their pension fund, they got their benefits, they used it however, and now that money is no longer there. Now they are coming back and saying, well, we no longer have means, and therefore we now also need to be afforded this benefit. Does the clause exclude those?
Yeah, the clause excludes them, because if we're going to say, do they qualify if we are using, for instance, a means test that says a person should not have any income below or above so much threshold that is put out there in the regulations of the regulations of the Act. You're going to find that some of them, they do have pensions. Some of them may actually be holding jobs, and therefore they would not qualify. So that safety catch is working, it's there. But what is important is that the definition should put it beyond approach the point that the department is meant for South Africa's yesterday's freedom fighters. Yeah. And in relation to other military veterans who were in the statutory forces, who were civil servants in the security sector, it makes perfect political sense for government to say they must also be assisted with respect to their economic rehabilitation, to provide them with skills that would make them to fall back on to continue with life. Because as soldiers, they can't use the skills they had before in order to eke living. So it does make political sense to say, in relation to all of those who are soldiers, the government has the responsibility to make sure it eases their life, eases them back into society in a very comfortable way by supporting them economically, but not to build houses for them, take their kids to school, and that would actually be double dipping, because in their employment policies, when they were in service, those issues were taken care of.
Now, the question then becomes, how do you then imagine these benefits to stay on for, right? Is the idea that these are benefits into perpetuity, or is the idea that there is a cutoff as to when these benefits would not continue? Or is this the conversation that you're saying this draft bill is inviting?
It may well be part of the issues that are raised when we go into that discussion of the policy, a full-blown discussion of the policy. What is, I suspect, is going to be one of the issues around the definition is the point that Thabo, the war of liberation in this country was a people's war. The very same guerrilla movements who were in boots and of members who were in boots and uniform were operating in this country with the assistance of people who were citizens by day and soldiers by night. That is why we had the kind of war that we had. And some of those citizens, who much as they were not part of those who were in uniform, in formations, ended up serving punishing prison sentences, long prison sentences, as a result of their involvement in that armed struggle. So in the definition of who is a military veteran, it is important that we should bring that dimension of things into the picture, because otherwise we may do injustice. People who worked together simply because this one was trained inside the country, was not part of the formations that were coming from outside, but nonetheless ended up on Robben Island assisting and participating in those activities. He's not a deserving military veteran. So we're going to have to really have a sober discussion around this.
There are some who take a very extreme view. They take it even further, Deputy Minister, and they say, well, no war was really fought in South Africa. So where did these people fight, really?
Well, that's cynicism we have to live with. A war was fought in this country, and many people died. Died from bullets. And I'm not talking massacres of innocent civilian populace. I'm talking about soldiers under arms who died in all kinds of skirmishes. We count them in hundreds in this country. So it would be very insensitive for us to entertain the notion of someone who says there was never a war in this country. Of course, there was a war in this country. Unless we don't respect the lives that were lost as a result of that armed conflict.
Right. Let's talk then about what the President mentioned, and I think you're touching on it as well. You're saying the arrangement around the military defense department was an interim arrangement. The President spoke of the military, the Department of Military Veterans and Defense being restructured. What does he mean about that, and what is a restructured Department of Military Veterans and Defense?
Well, the restructuring which everyone is concerned about has to do with the limited organization that the department has. The department structure was endorsed even before the act was passed in 2011. The department was established in 2010. And that structure was meant to be a rudimentary holding kind of arrangement, whilst Treasury was, working out a way of releasing more funds in order to have a more fully fledged department. But also, at the time, the act, with respect to the benefits that must now be rolled out, was not yet in place. It has taken us this long to actually reorganize that department such that you have a structure that speaks to the mandate and the strategy of the department. And this is where the friction is arising from. But the other point, of course, is that we need to reorganize the department. It's important to find very permanent protocols through which the department delivers services in collaboration with the provincial departments and in collaboration with local government, district municipalities, and local municipalities in some cases.
Let's talk next more on those benefits. When we come back, the housing benefit remains an ongoing concern. The education benefit was also a major concern. The President did announce that applications have now been reopened, so that moratorium has been lifted. But also we'll talk a little bit more about the health care benefits for dependents and what you are imagining that would look like. Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans Thabang Makwetla staying on with us. You can weigh in tonight, 072-110-5584. Tweet us at Newzroom 405. In Focus continues in a moment. Good afternoon in Focus. Newzroom Afrika, Channel 405. Thanks for staying on. The Deputy Minister of Defense and Military Veterans, Thabang Makwetla, with us tonight here in the studio to talk to us about unlocking some of the challenges faced by his department and, of course, the challenges being raised and grievances being raised by military veterans, which have been publicly ventilated, including some demanding 2.2 million rands in reparations each for the military veterans. And these are some of the issues that you would have had to deal with, Deputy Minister. First and foremost, 2.2 million each vet. What is the thinking there? Is that even a possibility?
No, that demand was entertained, discussed with them, and after very intensive discussions, we came to a conclusion that it was not a sustainable proposal. So it was taken out of the bag of grievances which we are seized with as we speak now.
Yeah.
But of course, Thabo, the notion of those who were in the struggle deserving to be paid as if they went there to serve in order to be remunerated. It's a very politically problematic notion. And very many people who gave their lives would feel very offended with that, kind of, assertion coming from among us who are still alive to say the country must pay us for the contribution we made to bring it to where it is today. We did it voluntarily, and it would serve us good to keep that spirit, the legacy of the dead. This was never about, money. Yeah. But of course, it does present a very problematic picture that having been freed, the populace of this country would have total disregard for those who brought the country to where it is today. It is another problem, and that's what that is the attitude of government in the manner in which we have dealt with that demand, to say, can we commit ourselves to restoring dignity on this community, on these military veterans? Can we, in a very reasonable way, intervene to make it a point that they have some money in their pockets to survive? And that is one of the reasons why we committed as a presidential task team to paying out a military pension. So it's not like we were just dismissing the two. Actually, they wanted 4 million. But I'm just saying the politics of the 4 million are very problematic. They would even divide that community because some of them would not agree with that kind of request.
I don't know if you're aware, Deputy Minister, that during the time of the hostage, it was happening live here on this show. I was speaking to Mr. Mzobe at the time when you were held inside St. George's. And one of the issues that he was raising with us live as the situation was happening was the fact that there are military vets there whose kids need to register. They're supposed to be going to school. Now you've stopped this thing of paying education support. And these people are distraught. Their kids don't even know what are they going to do and whether they'll be able to go to school this year. I mean, what was the thinking around the moratorium on paying of education support?
The moratorium on education was placed in the department because there was I now would not have the exact dates, years in which that moratorium was considered, but around 2016, 2017, the department decided to take an overload of applicants to be provided with bursaries, because in that financial year it would appear that there was money that was underspent in some of the programs, and there was violation. They moved that money to say, instead of returning it to Treasury, let's get this money used, because there are many people who have kids that are struggling to be kept in schools. So a huge population was loaded, and as the department moved on, it didn't take long. First year passed, the second year they realized they created a crisis, because that was not sustainable. And that's why they then put a moratorium on the bursaries for dependents and the military veterans themselves. That moratorium has been lifted, as the President said, last year. We have lifted that moratorium. We've opened the opportunity again for applicants to walk through the door. However, the challenge is that the Department of Military Veterans management capacity is woefully below where it should be. That is the reality we have. Even as it sits with money that it wants to give out to these military veterans dependents, the administrative capacity of doing so, the policies that must be in place to do so, procedures that must be in place, the modalities of delivering are just not sound. And that is why the people are going backwards and forwards, not because there is no money, the money is sitting there. It is just the lack of capacity of the management of the department in some of these instances to do what is expected of the department.
Is this lack of capacity at provincial level? Because the President also mentioned that you're capacitating these provincial offices to be able to dispense these benefits. And if you're saying there's a lack of administration capacity, where is the lack?
The Department of Military Veterans only has one office, and that is the head office in Hatfield in Pretoria. There is an attempt to have a presence in the province where they have about 2 people employed there, like in Limpopo where we come from last week. 2 people employed since 2014. They don't have an office. They are working from the boots of their cars. Sometimes under a tree, they park a car there and, engage with military veterans since 2014.
Sure.
So the department does not have infrastructure in the provinces, and that's one of the critical underbelly of the department. It is for that reason that it is important that we get provincial departments to be brought into the machinery to deliver these benefits to these military veterans. We must just assist to make sure that we provide the policy precepts that everyone can uniformly follow in the provinces.
Yeah. I suppose it would be the same situation with housing. For example, the question of housing that is above the threshold of the Department of Human Settlement, or bonds that are above the threshold of the Department of Human Settlement. What is the policy of Human Settlement on how to deal with that issue?
Delivery of houses to military veterans is on the understanding that the Department of Military Veterans, because it came up with a specification that is different from what an ordinary RDP house unit looks like. It will therefore top up the budget of the Department of Human Settlement when it delivers houses to military veterans.
Right.
They've got a top-up amount that they pay. Part of the discussions that we are having now is to cut out the bureaucratic processes that must be gone through before a house is rolled out on the other side of the conveyor belt, in the sense that it has become very clear that provincial departments are actually able to build these houses for military veterans with a specification that the DMV has come up with, slightly bigger than your RDP house, slightly inside the interior of the house, equipped with 1 or 2 things which an RDP house does not have. But those houses, the provincial housing departments are able to provide the units without the money, the top-up from DMV being forwarded to them. Limpopo, for instance, since 2014, I am told that a few months ago, they were only receiving for the first time a transfer of 9 million from the Department of Military Veterans to top up the houses that they started delivering 3 years ago. So for 3 years, they were not claiming. It is clear that it is not a huge amount of money they need to build these houses for military veterans the way they must be built.
Yeah.
So we actually are of the same mind with those who were discussing with that we should consider possibility of getting Treasury not to send the money for topping up houses of military veterans to DMV, but that top-up budget must just go straight to the Department of Human Settlement. And the Department of Human Settlement in the provinces must just build the units as they are specified.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the other stuff in the politics of it. There's been criticism around the arrests of the 53 war vets. Is it 56 or 53? I see two different numbers on this. And the possibility of adding terrorism-related charges to the charge sheet. Many have been critical of government, saying, why are you treating these war vets like this?
On another day, I wouldn't mind to discuss that matter, but as you're aware, it is a matter that is sub judice because it's before the courts. Yeah. So I would be weary of commenting and talking about the case because we may comment about things that later on may actually be part of the evidence before the courts.
Yeah, I do understand it. But as a principle, I mean, you believe that this is the route that should be followed to resolve this particular matter.
You mean by holding people hostage?
No, by taking them to prison, taking them to courts, arresting them. This is the process that should be followed to resolve this matter.
No, that has nothing, Thabo, to do with resolving matters of military veterans, as I earlier on said.
Yeah.
Violence of whatever sort, and the violation of rights of other people in whatever way, the laws of the country are there, the laws are there, and all of us are expected to observe them. That is the context in which the case before the courts around these military veterans arises. It is not, to do with our stance and attitude to their demands. It is the nature of the action that they took that the law enforcement agencies are saying that, no, here you have transgressed the law. We are not part of that.
Deputy Minister, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for indulging us and coming through tonight.
Thank you very much, Thabo, for having us on your program. Thank you very much.